All right, we're on air. Happy Thursday, everybody. It is December 6th. Sorry, I've been away for the past few weeks, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm really happy that I am not needed anymore. Feels fantastic that you guys can carry on without me. This meeting is to check in on design and usability tasks for Backdrop CMS. Starting with our web properties, backdropcms.org, our flagship website, has some problems with modules, themes, and layout search pages. We've had designs for these pages for a really long time that have never been fully implemented, and we're having some issues with search now that we have enough stuff that we really need to be able to search accurately. And so over the past few weeks, I've been working on implementing the designs fully, and so I posted a screenshot of those in the agenda for today, and that's working. And now what I'm doing is working on fixing the search. So what we were doing before is we were doing a search, but instead of using search module that was in core, we were doing a combined fields filter in views. And so what I've done now is I've switched this back to using search, and I'm going to try and implement some hooks against search to improve the way search actually works and make sure that we can get the results we want using our API. And if we find places where we can't, I feel like that's going to be a place to improve the API, just kind of make core search better. And so what in the screenshot, what you're looking at is a new view mode specifically for modules, themes, and layouts, so that the search returns, not like a teaser, but I think it's called search modules, I don't know, some project search or something like that. So that it just, the search result will just be like a ton of node IDs that it matches, and then we'll be able to order those however we need, and then they'll just render correctly. So rather than having to list all the fields, it was making the view kind of complicated. And so since I wanted to return, like control the results of the view in a way that, anyway. So I'm doing some work on it. It's kind of a mess. The design part is great, but I want to get the search part cleaned up too before we launch that. So that's what I'm working on now. So yeah, also we're trying to add filters so that people can not just use the search box, which is what they're doing now, but also like control, sort, order, and filter by, you know, other things. And so we have issue number 37, which we'll talk about in the next meeting, that might add to this as well. And then right now you can also filter by most installed and most downloaded, which are the two counts that we currently have showing in the sidebar. But we'll be able to control sorts, so like most recently posted and stuff like that too, in addition to just using the search box. So we'll get some sort options first, and then we'll add filter options later. So good stuff coming soon. Forum, our forum site, forum.backdropcms.org. We have this outstanding issue number 59 that needs somebody with some JavaScript skills to take a look at it. We've got to figure out what's wrong with the CK editor plugin width for how long our special formatting is and override it. Wes gave me some code that I tried to throw into a couple of different places, and it didn't quite do the trick. And I don't know if that's because the selectors have changed since you wrote the code, or if the CK editor JavaScript is overriding anything we do in CSS. So there's probably some other ways we can fix that. We could probably fix it with JavaScript. We might be able to fix it by putting that code into a smarter location, but trying to figure out how to add a breakpoint in your browser inspector and figure out exactly which piece of the code needs to be changed when is a little bit beyond my skill level. So if anyone wants to take a stab at that and figure out how to fix that up, that would be great. Again, that's issue number 59 in the backdropcms.org queue. All right. Talking about Backdrop the product, the first issue in the list for user experience is issue number 37. This is one I just mentioned. This is about adding tags to modules. So all this issue does is add text to the info files, and that should make it so that we can search by those tags on the modules page, so using the normal search box, and also provide all of these tags to backdropcms.org to enable better searching on the site, and to Project Browser to enable better searching there. So the issue itself, 37, is pretty minor, just add tags, but the utility of those tags elsewhere in the Backdrop ecosystem is, I think, the real win there. So I believe there was an issue with that current pull request on number 37, and it's assigned to me to figure out what I broke in the last version. So I'll try and take a look at that sometime soon. The next issue, 1005, is to add options element in core. So this essentially takes the giant text area where you type in key value pairs and turns it into a nice interface with a key column and a value column, and you can hide the key column and it'll auto number, or it'll auto create from values, and it'll just make a better experience for entering key value pairs. So that issue is currently at needs review. I think right now it works really well with core. I don't know if we're going to need to make any changes to web form in order to make it work there. It was originally written for web form and not for core. So there might be a couple of little updates we have to do in Contrib to make sure that it works with the new core implementation. But so far, all the testing I've done on the core version is really good. I put a couple of really nitpicky little like wish list items in the issue queue, and Herb just took care of them right away. So I would definitely encourage more people to take a look at that, and I am looking forward to seeing it. Next issue, 566, is about adding sticky submit buttons. So this would be if you had a really, really long form, the buttons will stick at the bottom of your page, so as you're scrolling, the buttons will always be accessible. I think the pull request is in good shape, and what we need on that is feedback. So if anyone wants to take that pull request for a little test ride in the sandbox, let us know if you think it's an improvement or not. It's definitely one of those things where it really depends on who's using it, whether they think it's better than it was before. I really like it, but I would love to get more opinions on that before we commit it. Next issue, number 1383. This is just a quick one to update the button text when you're saving a form so that you know what's going to happen when you hit the save button. Right now, I think it just says save. So this is for a node form in particular. If you're going to publish the content when you hit save, it should say publish. If you're going to schedule it, it should say schedule. We've got some I think recommendations in there for what the text might be. This issue currently is labeled as needs feedback, but I don't know what exactly is needed. I haven't read over the issue recently, so we might need some review. The next one is to make the help text more legible for publishing status options. So also related to whether you're creating a draft, publishing, or scheduling. There's sort of a really long paragraph of text that explains what all of those things do, rather than having a nice concise sentence for each one. So there's a couple of recommendations here about how we could separate that out into something that might make more sense for each. And then there's also another issue about styling sort of globally in core, how we should handle description text in particular for radio options. And then next up is just a clarification on the dependency message. This is number 2858. So this is when you're making updates from, for example, Drupal 7 to Backdrop. If you can't run an update hook, it should tell you why, which module is the problem. And we already had all that data as part of the update, so the latest version just prints it to the screen. I would love it if that could get a review to make sure people think it's clear enough. I think there's some pretty good steps to reproduce in there, but I really like the last version. In the previous version I had changed a lot of stuff, and then I realized I didn't have to do that because all of the information was already in there. So now it just prints out. Less change, always good. Next one is promoted modules. This is issue number 3193. And this was just making it so that we had a way to indicate in the module installer and on backdropcms.org which modules you should choose if there is a bunch that are doing sort of the same thing and one of those is perhaps slated for core in the future, directing people towards the one that we would like them to use. I think we have already set up the main Backdrop site to promote, but we have not yet included that value in search rankings. And then once we get the search results correct, We also need to do the same thing for the project modules output. And this would be what affects the in-app project installer. And so right now, the query that determines the results of the search is hard-coded in project module. And so it would be good if we could figure out how to make that query match the results of the search on the front end of backdropcms.org, so you're getting similar result set when you search for the same thing on both places. But my original intent was to try and figure out how to get the search returning things in the right order first, and then we'll figure out what's necessary to update a project module once we know the actual order we want the items to be in. So that's kind of a two-step thing, and I think it is sort of blocked on getting the core search thing working in the right order.
So is there like a package XML or something that is generated in b.org that should include information of which project is? I mean, how does an installation pick up if this module updates? It pulls b.org and then it pulls what?
Yeah, Nate, you can correct me here if I'm not right on this, but when you run the updater, it basically asks backdropcms.org for a list of modules and their status, and then it compares that status to what you have and will update your page. But so the backdropcms.org has an output feed of all of the modules, and then when you type in the search term, that gets passed to backdropcms.org and it filters that list and returns a subset.
Yeah, so is that feed, is it an actual RSS feed? Is it an XML? That what is it exactly on the b.org side?
It's an XML feed.
XML, okay.
And kind of an ugly one.
So, yeah. So it basically needs, it needs us to include the promoted thing flag in the projects, right? So that we can pick it on the application side.
Yeah, and return them in the right order, so those would be at the top if you put in a search query for like reference or something.
Okay, so the order that things come up when you search within the app, does it rely on the order that the XML? Oh,
yeah. So all of the searching is actually done on our side, and we just return the results, and then the results are rendered.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to get the searching on our side working first.
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about updates, but are we talking about the project search, like the project browser? That's JSON. Sorry. Yeah, but it's a JSON feed that gets returned.
Okay.
But you're right that the order comes back from backdropcms.org, and then the search results just display whatever backdropcms.org returned.
Okay, which explains why we have the same problem in the project browser when we search. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Next up. Oh, that's it for user experience issues. So that doesn't mean we don't have any more user experience issues. There's a lot of user experience issues in Backdrop. We know that, and every time we have a good idea about how to fix something or really agree with a complaint about something, we usually create an issue with UX and square brackets in the title. So if you're particularly interested in user experience and want to see the issues that we're working on, you can search the issue queue for UX. We also have a special milestone for the next minor version of Backdrop, which is 112, and you can search that for all the UX issues we would love to have done by that version. The great thing about user experience issues is a lot of times they just require some rewording or minor improvements of text, and those are great issues for people who haven't contributed yet to get started with. So looking through that queue is also a great way to find good first issues to work on. All right, moving on to design. We have a couple of issues related specifically to the design of Backdrop. The first one is number 3209, which is about adding predefined color schemes to Basis. I think we have a pretty good pull request here that has a bunch of colors in it. My last feedback on that one was that we should run all of those colors through an accessibility checker to make sure that the contrast is high enough that all of our core color sets are accessible out of the box. So I think that might require some minor tweaks to some of the colors just to make sure that they will show up in all of the combinations that we provide by default. If anyone is particularly interested in accessibility and color, that would be a great one to get wrapped up. I think I don't remember, but I think I threw a link to an accessibility color contrast checker in that issue, but if not, I will take a look at that later.
So on that issue,
Yes.
I was planning on doing that, but I've just been caught up with stuff. And I also wanted to, there's another issue to allow splitting out the color options into multiple field sets. And I wanted to do that as well so that we could have more options there, because we kept running into issues where we didn't have enough options. And so two things were too close together because they were using the same colors as somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
If we just kept adding more colors to that list, then it got really long and overwhelming.
Yeah.
To just have them all in one list.
Yeah.
Are you actively working on that in a ticket, a specific one?
There is a ticket for this. However, actively is not quite the right word for that.
Okay.
So what might be good is to take just to get something in. I think that issue, the one that adds new colors, adds a bunch of new colors. It might be good to take a look at that, run it through the contrast checker, and if there are 4 that pass, just get those in committed right away. And then if there are 4 that don't, push those until we can get all of the additional colors added in field sets and do it later. And that way we'll kind of get something done rather than waiting to get everything done all at once.
All right.
Okay, let's see. Next one, issue 3309, is to remove the tabs on the login, register, and password reset pages. This is something that when I'm trying to see if a site is made of Drupal, I often go to /user and look at what the login page looks like. Number one, /user will give away that the site's Drupal, but also those tabs are unique to the Drupal/backdrop experience. And so one thing that I like to do on my sites to hide that a little bit is I remove the tabs on the user login page, and I go back to adding the forgot your password link instead of using a tab that just says password reset on it. And I find that's also a better experience. It's more common with what people see around the web. And so because I've done that on a ton of different sites, I'm like, wait, why don't we just fix this entirely for core? So I have an issue for that, which is what this is, 3309. It looks like there's some concern in that issue that just removing the visual tabs might cause a problem for some people that were maybe relying on it. And so we need to figure out a way, if we're going to make that drastic a change in core, how we would make that better for everyone who might be using them. So my solution was a form alter that would add a new form element that contains the link, and then just change the menu callback type for those tabs instead of being menu local tasks, just making them be menu links. But some people were concerned about just altering people's forms to throw in links on them with an update might be a bit heavy-handed. So there were also some recommendations about trying to do it in the Basis theme. My concern about doing it in the Basis theme is that anyone who's not using Basis or a subtheme would not get the advantage of the change. So I think we just need to do some careful thinking about what are the implications of just changing people's user login form out from under them. Is there anything that would end up broken, or would it just be shocking? Would it be ugly? And is the benefit of having an unstyled link, is the benefit of not having tabs worth the risk of having an unstyled link on the form? So just kind of figuring out if that's worth pursuing in its current state, or if we need to rethink how that's done. So I would love feedback on that issue. See what people think. 3309. All right, the next one is number 2873. This is to redesign the installer on a mobile. So if you desperately needed to install Backdrop right now on your phone, how would that feel? And can we improve that? We've got some great recommendations about how it can be done. We just need to have some code written. So if somebody wants to write some CSS and maybe a theme function or something, that should be a pretty good first issue to jump in on. Next is Basis. We did notice in the Basis theme, the maintenance page has not been styled. So this is 2558. You can take a look at the maintenance page in 7 and the maintenance page in Bartik and see that they both have sort of a distinct feel to them, whereas the maintenance page in Basis is just a blank white page with a unstyled message in it. So it might be good to just kind of say, in a Basis world, what does our maintenance page look like? I would love it if we could, number one, just get something that looks like it's not styled there, but also number two, if we could use this as a way to kind of express a little bit more of Backdrop's personality and branding. I've seen a lot of really cute things done with like 404 pages lately, and I feel like that gives a lot of, it's an improvement to any site that like spends some time on that 404 page and makes that a good experience for people. I would love to see our maintenance page treated the same way. Like if you have a Backdrop site and it goes down for maintenance, just giving people a good first impression, like, oh, you know, not just like, sorry, your site's down, in an unbranded way. But if we could find some way to make something that's not too heavily branded, because we don't want to take it away from their brand, but sort of like Basis is, you know, clean, good fonts, all that stuff, and just make it a little better. What was that?
Dragon?
Did you say Garland?
No, dragon. Sorry.
Dragons.
Yes.
You could put dragons on it, I guess.
Yes.
We could also do something clever with language too. Like I noticed that a lot of 404 pages, rather than just saying not found, they're like, oh, you know, we couldn't find, you know, they do something cute. Like,
yeah, like GitHub says, this is not the page that you're looking for GitHub.
Yeah, stuff like that. So I think this is a place where if we wanted to find a way to, you know, make our default message be a little bit more human friendly than just sites down for maintenance, that could be a place for improvement there too. So if anyone has any inspiration about how to make our maintenance page for Basis cute and lovely and not unbranded, that's a good way to do it. A good place to do it. 2520. All right, and then back on our list is the Views User Interface Redesign 3171. This again is something that we know the Views User Interface is overwhelming, but all the people that are coming to us from Drupal know how to use it, and there is extreme value in that. So I would love to kind of take an overhaul look at the Views UI redesign and pull out all of the pieces that we think we can change without breaking people's muscle memory and integrate those sort of one at a time so that we're not massively removing everything everyone knows and giving them something, a new interface that's overwhelming and that they don't understand. But that said, I do think we need to rethink this. And I think that in a couple of years, when we no longer have a mass onslaught of people arriving in Backdrop from Drupal, and nobody has the muscle memory of how to use views, we're going to need to make this thing a lot easier for people to understand. And so it would be good to think about that problem now. And if we come up with a result we really like, see what of that result we can integrate now without breaking that memory. So it's a great experiment to get it done early, and then we can see what we can use now versus what we should wait to implement later. So we definitely need feedback on that. Issue 3171, I think there's a great design there that starts to kind of group things a little more logically, well, differently logically, and to see how we can start to make improvements on this. And if you are very interested in design and want to get involved with Backdrop, we have a tag in the issue queue, audience design. Those are usually issues that need either design review, actual designs created, or feedback on how to improve something. And those are issues where we'd love to have more people who are passionate about design getting involved in making Backdrop a prettier and more usable product. So please search the issue queue for that tag. Also, you can take a look at all of the issues for version 1.12. You might find some design-themed items in there if you want, and hopefully we'll try and get as many of those done as we can before January 1st, which is now less than a month away, to make Backdrop even prettier. So that's all I have for Backdrop Core. Is there anything else that we've been working on lately that may be related to designer user experience that we want to add to this agenda or perhaps talk about today?
Just a generic question, because this is very in my head. It came up in a UX issue. Do we allow non-bug UX issues to be committed, the fixes, during patch releases, or they have to be in the major? So it was my understanding that we do allow small fixes
I think it depends on the fix. Like if it is a small fix, like terminology, like changing edit to configure or something, yeah, that counts as like a bug fix. But if it's something huge, like redoing the Views UI, then that definitely needs to wait. I think, Nate, was your rule like if it needs tests, it has to wait for a minor version?
Well, first of all, if it's a new feature of any kind, it normally has to wait for a minor version, with the exception of UX things.
Right,
So
that's what we're talking about, is just user experience things. And
Yeah.
where's the line on user experience things as to whether they can go into bug fixes or minor releases?
It's a little bit subjective, yeah.
So I think, Gregory, I would say take a look at that particular issue and bring it up and say, what about this one? Is this one you think we can get in? And I think that was one that Doc Beaumont was working on. I don't remember. It was you and someone else. And it would be good to have.
Helpdo was there. So it's issue 3389, which there's a WTF thing there going on with resetting passwords, and the current password field is not marked as required. So some people skip it. We are in a better situation than Drupal, because we have removed the double password fields that requires the confirmation. So we're in a slightly better situation. But then we alternate. We have a username, a password field, email, another password field. So either put the two password fields together, or I'm not sure. Anyways, but the solution that I went with was that to hide the current password field until the moment that someone edits their email or they change the password. So I'm not sure if this is too much of a change that should wait.
So this is because when you go to change your email or password, you're required the current password in order to make that change?
Yes, but that field is not marked as a required field because it would throw validation errors if in the cases that you didn't change those fields.
Right.
So we don't have it as required, and then we have a custom validation, but it's not indicated that it's a required field. So people might just skip it, and then when they press save, they get a warning about a field be required, but it's not marked as required. So it's a bit of a...
So I can think of a way that we could fix this, like for this particular issue, but we might also want to take a step back and say, maybe this is something that's going to happen like all over using our form states, where there could be something that's not required until something else is in a certain state. And do we have a process for marking that not only in validation, but also on the front end? And figuring out if there's like a pound states thing we should implement that would make that happen.
So there is a d.org issue, a core issue, where against the form API. So the required property does not work with states. That's the problem.
Right.
So you cannot use states to say when a field is required. In that case, we would have used this. So the workaround or the hack that I have used for my solution there was to. Sorry, let me rephrase that, what I said before. It doesn't practically work with validation-wise, but it does, like when you use the states in combination with required, the field does get the asterisk, which denotes it as required, but the validation doesn't work. So we still need the validation, the custom validation. So I added that just to indicate it, and then so to make it so that it doesn't seem as always required, I hid the field, and I make it show up only if someone adds something in the email or the password. So that field is completely hidden away until someone actually changes the email or types a new password. And in that case, it's also indicated as required.
Is there, I mean, that still sounds sort of like a custom solution for this page. I don't know if maybe that's what we need to pursue here, because that's going to be much easier than fixing form API states. But is there some way that we can, so what states does this handle, like JavaScript stuff, right? So making something validate or not validate is happening in PHP. But I wonder if there's some kind of flag we could add in JavaScript that would enable or disable the pound validate part of it when it gets to PHP. I don't know, Nate, if you've thought about this problem at all, like how to make PHP processing happen based on stuff that happens in JavaScript on the front end. But
yeah, sorry, go Nate.
Oh, I think I would need to process that fully in order to answer that. So,
okay. Now, I don't think it's going to be much of an issue if the actual underlying problem with Form API gets sorted in D7 core, or if we fix it before then. But yeah, it's been there for years. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a pull request or a patch on any of the Drupal issues, or has this been fixed in Drupal 8?
Just let me quickly, because I have the issue in front of me and I have links to tickets there. Just hold on a second. Sorry, my computer is acting up today. Just give me 2 seconds. So it's marked as a major bug against D8 at the moment, but it has a tag of D7 for Form API challenge. And the current status is active.
Yeah, no patches or anything.
I don't see this.
I've run into this too. I'm trying to make, like, as I move modules from Drupal to Backdrop, I'm sort of doing a user experience cleanup, and a lot of that is adding pound states so that things that aren't required until they're required are visible, hidden visible sort of stuff, and the required stuff is super tricky. So yeah, I mean, I think like there is going to be an underlying Form API change somewhere. We're going to have to figure out how to get the front and back talking to each other in order to make that work. But I think maybe you're right that we should just figure out the hack for the user form, because we know this is an issue there, and that's going to happen on every Backdrop site ever. And I like your idea of adding the pound required marker, but hiding the field, because that way people won't see the required marker until they make the change. And then once they make the change, they'll see the field and they'll see that it's required. And then if the validation behaves that way already, we're just making the front end match the back end, which I feel like is a pretty good solution. But I would love to see a better fix for that everywhere, just because I've run into it.
Yeah, the alternative that I thought, before I implemented the solution with hiding the field, the alternative that I thought was if there was a way to use states to show and hide just the indicator, because if you have the required indicator all the time, it doesn't make sense still, because it's not required until someone changes those two fields.
Yeah.
So it's
another thing too is Form API versus HTML5. Like, I think if you mark a field as required in HTML5, it'll fail validation on the front end too. And I think we need to be careful we're not doing that, especially for a hidden field, because that would be super confusing. But if all we're doing is adding an asterisk, that should be fine.
Yeah, the thing is, that's not the underlying problem. The underlying problem is basically that we are having conditionally required fields. And when a person has an overview of the page and say they type something and the only change that happens is that the asterisk then appears, it might not get noticed.
Right.
So yeah, it's a tricky one. If it was an easy one, I'm sure they would have come up with a solution in d.org. I'm not saying that, but yeah.
So with your pull request, how would I just change my password? Is that field hidden?
You just start typing the new password, and then that field shows up.
But so it's just the confirm field, or the old it's the old password field.
Yes, so okay. you have a new password field, which is a single one now, because we have the show hide thing with the password. And once you start typing in it, the required field, the current password, just shows up.
Okay.
Right underneath it. So I guess it's more obvious. The only situation where it wouldn't be obvious, I guess, is in small viewports where while you're editing the new password field is right at the bottom of the screen. So when the current password thing shows up, it's outside your viewport.
Yeah, but you still have to scroll to get to the submit button.
Yes,
so
you'll still get to see it.
Field. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So besides the solution discussion, which is yes, I appreciate, the actual question was would such a case, and then specifically for this issue, warrant this to become a 1.12 issue, or can it go in a patch release? And that's more a question for Nate, I guess.
I think based on what I understand, I think it could I don't know. It's a change in behavior, right? So I'm kind of thinking that's probably a minor issue.
Oh,
Or
change in visibility. The
Yeah.
behavior's the same.
Yeah, I'll change the milestone there.
Okay.
My thought process there was that this is a UX bug. So if we have a solution, then it is a bug fix. That was my thought process. But yeah.
But we might want to add tests though, right, to make sure that that field appears when we want it to. And so that would be my indicator of like if we're adding a test, we probably should put it into 112.
I would love if someone takes a look, but I don't speak tests yet, so I would
I also
appreciate.
don't know if we can add JavaScript, test the test JavaScript. We can test attributes though, right?
I'm not sure. Right?
I'm not sure we can test that.
Well, we can test what the markup that's on the page. Like,
But if it's just shown or hidden with JavaScript or CSS, that can't.
No, and not at this point because we don't have anything that uses that renders JavaScript in our testing framework still.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know.
I always pick the good issues.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so that's it for backdropcms.org issues and backdrop CMS issues, product issues. Okay, next up is print design. We would love to have a banner, like a pop-up banner, not a pop-up on your website, but like an actual physical thing that we could put next to a table for backdrop events. If anyone wants to design one, we don't have anyone with those skills working on it. We would love to help get specs and get that sorted out for future events where a backdrop may be. No rush on that, but if someone wants to do it, we'd love to have them. I think that's it. Unless anyone has anything else they want to add. Nope. Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap this meeting. Oh, I don't know, Tim, did you have something you were going to say?
No worries. Nope.
Okay.
Later.
You can say it if you want to.
I was just going to ask along the lines of what is UX and not. I guess this is probably subjective, but there's been a lot of talk about this dashboard.
Yeah.
And I was curious, is that a UX issue or?
It's definitely user experience improvement to have a dashboard, but I would call that a new feature because it's pretty big. But yeah, both. I would say if you think the thing you're working on improves your experience, then it's a UX issue. But
and it involves design as well.
Go ahead.
Yes. It involves design as well, so it's a design issue as well.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering how you decide, like, what to put on this agenda.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think it should go on this agenda. I just hadn't thought about it.
Sure.
So 2 weeks from now, we will discuss that as well. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this meeting. Oh, wait.
Sorry, there's one. Sorry, it just came to me now. There's another design issue. I'm not sure if we have a specific issue on GitHub for that, but see how we redesigned the listing for the views, and we added the naming and the label of the view and the machine names we added in the same column, and we said that we should be consistent with the rest of the UI. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if we have a ticket for that specifically, but we just said that it would have been great to have an official decision so that we can implement it in the entirety of the admin interface. And I'm not sure what people think of that, like if they have given it a spin and what they think about actually moving the machine name field. Sorry, the machine name thing from a separate column to the same column as the label. Okay.
I've added 2 new bullet items to this agenda for the views listing cleanup and admin interface consistency, and I will figure out where those issues are and throw links in here. Yeah, I read the comments on that. I thought they were all spot on, that like if we have plenty of space, combining things into columns may not make sense, but when we don't have space, I think combining them does make sense. So I think sort of every interface will have to figure out like whether it's worth squishing.
Yeah, And since we're bringing this up, I was testing in the same issue the mobile version of the views listing. It's completely different than the rest of the UI. So for the rest of the UI, we use priority classes for the columns that show and hide them. But in views, we use vertical table thingy. I don't know what to call it. Responsive tables, I guess. I don't know. But it's completely different than the rest of the UI.
Well, views is sort of completely different from the rest anyway. So I'm not too worried about that, but I think that just because there's a lot more information there. But I think that we should maybe look at the way everything else is done and make sure that it's all done consistently across everything. And then if we find a way that we think it should be the same, like something weird that's different that shouldn't be different, we should fix that.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
The pop-up banner. That's one of those like 2 foot wide by 6 foot tall things that sits on the ground behind the booth.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I might ask my brother to look at that because he's like doing graphic design stuff.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. We will meet again in 10 minutes to talk about other issues if you want to join us. But if not, see you on the internet. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.